Hello and welcome to Mac Power Users. My name is Stephen Hackett, and I'm joined by my friend and yours, Mr. David Sparks.
Hello, Stephen. How are you today, friend?
I am good. It's starting to feel like fall. We got a good episode. It's a pretty good day.
Yeah, I moved my trees. Every summer I put all my little bonsai in a shady area of the yard because I don't want them to die in the sun. And in an unbridled show of optimism over the weekend, I moved everything out into the yard in their favorite places, and now they're getting more sun and hopefully not going to get fried by the Southern California sun. And to add to my joy, we're welcoming back to the show one of my favorite nerds. Welcome back, Dr. Drang.
Hey, it's good to be back.
Yeah, it is good to be back. Every time you come on the show, we start out with me talking about how your photo in Zoom terrifies me, and you still have it. I guess if you go back and listen to old shows, there's a whole story about the whole snowman. But man, you're still doing it to me. I see. Do you just add it every time you come in on the show, or is that your standard?
That's my standard. It's not just for you, David.
Okay. Well, I felt
I could make it more. I could zoom in on it and make it more terrifying, I suppose, if you want, just for you.
Well, we've got a lot to catch up on. It's been a long time since you've been on the show, but before we get started, how did we do with St. Jude, Stephen?
Yeah, it was a really awesome month. So we closed the campaign at $754,000, which is our third best ever, which is just incredible. So thank you all who donated, or if you did a community fundraiser, watch the podcastathon, however you were involved. We really appreciate it. It means a lot every year, and we are now knocking on the door of $5 million raised since we started this in 2019, which is, look, when we started this, I was like, maybe we'll raise like 25 grand, 50 grand. I never imagined this much money coming in. So thank you all.
$750,000 just this year alone.
Yeah.
And I want to specifically thank the Mac Power users because when we were at the relay event, the St. Jude people sought me out to tell me how the Mac Power users are particularly generous. It doesn't surprise me, but I just want to thank everyone listening that reaches into their pocket every year and helps out a great cause. And you guys made me look good. I really appreciate that. But I'm just very proud of our audience and what we're able to bring to the table every year. Today on More Power Users, Drang's going to talk about his blogging stack. The good doctor is known for some of his excellent blog posts, and he has a very particular way he posts to the internet, and I think it's kind of fun. We'll be talking about that. More Power Users. More Power Users is the ad-free extended version of the show. You can sign up for it over at relay.fm/MPU. We'd love to have you.
All right, Dr. Drang, it's been a few years since you've been on the show. And in fact, in putting things together, I found an interview you and I did it from 2012, which is just hard to believe.
Yeah.
But welcome back. We'd love to catch up a little bit about what you've been up to.
Yeah. Well, I am retired from my real job now, and so I am spending a lot of time. Well, now with the weather being nice here in the Chicago area, once it turns warmish, I start bicycling and kayaking. I took up kayaking seriously sort of last year, and so I'm out around getting a tan, which is unusual for me. That I've never done that before in my life, and I'm not trying; it just happens. And so I spent a lot of time doing that, and I am still sort of kicking around with. I don't care so much about productivity anymore because what difference does it make? But when I use a computer, which of course we all do all the time because you can't get away from it, I like to avoid annoyances as much as possible and avoid repeating myself as much as possible. So I still end up doing little automations here and there and little tweaks to my system to make things work faster and easier. Well, sometimes I make the tweaks and they don't work faster and easier. And with luck, I turn that around and switch back to something else. But that's the goal anyway.
Well, it's kind of fun too, right? I mean, figuring this stuff out.
No question about it. I mean, everybody talks about how automation is, or any sort of thing that you're doing with a computer where you're trying to, improve things. Oh, if you don't end up, if you spend, 3 hours making something and you will only save 2 seconds every time you use it, and you don't use it more than once a week, you'll never make up that time. The math might not work out on that, but something like that. You'll never make up that time. Well, that's not really the point. The point is that I do this so that when I need to, for example, add a link to a blog post, I don't get out of the flow of my writing in order to make the link to the blog post. I do it as efficiently as possible so I can continue writing without thinking that much about the link anymore, or the mechanics of making a link. That's why I do it. And as David said, it's fun to figure these things out. They're puzzles.
Sure.
Yeah, and in addition, you share it with the world. So it doesn't just save you 5 seconds. It saves X number of the people reading your posts 5 seconds. So
I'm a wonderful human being. Yes,
yes, you are.
That's me.
You are.
Well, congratulations on the retirement. And I will say, I've had your kayaking link saved. I'll have it in the show notes because you have this really cool foldable kayak. And my kayak was a gift from an uncle who, I think at age like 80, decided he shouldn't be out on the river by himself, which I mean is probably
honest, maybe not.
Maybe
got a lot of experience.
Yeah, but it's this fishing kayak, and it's huge and very heavy. And I keep looking at this foldable one. It's like, that'd be nice.
Well, I'll tell you what, because I was 64, and I don't want to derail this already. We've kind of already done that. But the reason I went with what I did, my kayak weighs 20 pounds. And when I was thinking last year I should get a kayak, I was thinking, okay, well, I've got to I've got to get, rails on the top of the car.
Mm-hmm.
I need to, and I started thinking, well, what do they weigh? I'm 64 years old. How much longer am I going to be lifting that thing up and putting it on the top of the car? Because I'm not going to have help doing it. I have to be able to do it myself. And when I found these the foldable kayaks that are so light, it was just, yes, I don't care that it's not very fast. I just throw it in the back of the car and I go off to a lake or a stream or whatever. And it takes very little effort for me to put it back together. They say it takes 5 minutes to put it together in the advertisings. And I didn't believe that. I thought that was crap. I can put my kayak together from folded up as a suitcase, ready to go in the water in 5 minutes or less.
It's wild.
Yeah, that's nice. It's interesting that general concept of friction. Like people say, well, because I have to assemble it every time I use it, I'm just less likely to use it. And you see that in all sorts of contexts. Like even when I was building my studio out, should I put permanent lighting in? Well, I timed it. It takes me 10 minutes to set up my lighting. And I understand that that's 10 minutes that I lose. But then when you think about all the stupid stuff I waste 10 minutes on, with the limited amount of space I have, I'm willing to spend 10 minutes when I need to set the lights up, And it's for a lot of us, I think we get hung up on this idea that we have to remove all friction. And my advice is run the test, figure out how much time it actually is. Maybe it's just not that big of a deal to make something more convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and some of it is you're getting your mind right and you're getting yourself prepped. So my putting the kayak, or not putting it together because it's all one piece, but unfolding it and connecting all the straps and stuff like that, that's me. That's the time I spend thinking about where I'm going to go, what path I'm going to take out on the lake, and things like that. It's not wasted time, and I don't have to I've done this enough now. I don't have to think about putting the kayak together. I don't have to think about setting it up. That just kind of happens in another part of my brain while I'm getting myself prepped to go out and paddle.
And I'm assuming you go out there with nothing in your ears, no podcasts, or you just go out and just kind of enjoy nature, right?
Oh no, Dave. Oh God, no.
No? I thought, okay.
No. I mean, sometimes I do, but quite often I have my AirPods in. I'm usually not listening to podcasts. Well, it's a mixture. Sometimes I will listen to music. Some of my longest paddles, I'm listening to Apple Music with like a so-and-so essentials playlist going, one that's already made up by Apple. And the Prince Essentials, I can recommend that. It goes on for a really long time, so you will not out paddle the Prince Essentials playlist. You will not have to change.
I have that playlist too. I like it. But in my head, it was you had gone full, nature boy on this thing, but apparently not.
No, I do like to, slow down and see the wildlife that's around where I paddle, and we'll talk about that when we get into talking about my equipment. But yeah, so no, I'm perfectly happy to have AirPods in as I go.
I've got two areas of my brain locked off that I have looked into. One is kayaking, the other is fly fishing. And I have intentionally locked the door on both of those because there is no time in my life for either one of them. But
fly fishing is very fussy.
Yeah, I could see myself falling down that rabbit hole someday. Anyway, All right, let's talk about tech. Since the last time you were on the show, Apple has changed its underlying architecture. So have you joined the Apple Silicon Revolution?
Oh, yeah. So I got an M1 MacBook Air in 2021.
Yeah.
Early 2021. I think it came out in late 2020, if I'm remembering right.
That sounds about right.
And that was the first Air I had bought in 10 years because Apple's laptops kind of went through this odyssey of having trouble until it came to that. They had fixed the keyboard, maybe a year or so earlier. And, it was clear that Apple didn't want to make the MacBook Air anymore, even though that was its most popular MacBook and it was my favorite MacBook. And I always, they didn't go to Retina on it for a very long time. They really delayed making it better, truly improving it. And I had kind of been, up until that point in 2021, I had been using an iPad Pro as, it's hard to say that it was my main computer, but it was the computer I sat in front of. Quite often I was connected to my iMac and, sort of running programs on my iMac, Python scripts and things like that I had written for work, while connected through, what the heck was the the terminal emulation program that Panic made?
Prompt.
Yes, I was going to say transmit, but no, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Prompt. I'd have Prompt going. I had Textastic going, and so I was writing my scripts on the Pro, and they were being saved through iCloud Drive, and then I'd switch over to Prompt, and then I'd run them, and that worked reasonably well. Apart from the fact that the screen was a little small, and it was a 13-inch iPad Pro, so it was fine. And I did that for a couple of years. And before that, I had the 9.5-inch iPad Pro and was kind of doing sort of the same thing for, I don't know, a year or so. Mm-hmm. That was kind of that was a test. And I had done that sort of because I was really wondering whether Apple's laptop line was ever going to come back.
Yeah.
Whether they were going to make a good one or not.
There was a time there where that was a question.
Yeah. Well, when they kept messing around with the butterfly keyboard instead of just saying, that was a mistake. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So again, because I was a big fan of the Air, I waited for several years before they decided to give me a Retina display, which I also really wanted because I had a Retina display on my phone and I had a Retina display on my iPad, and I really didn't want to have a non-Retina display on my computer, on my Mac. But in early 2021, when I got this M1 Air, all of the frustrations that I had had with trying to make an iPad work like a, in quotes, real computer just faded away. And it was like I was home again. And all of my workflows that I had set up for doing things on the Air, I just shut them down and went all in on using the Mac again, for both for work and for blogging.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had that fear in the 2015 to 2020 or so time frame of like, gosh, these machines like aren't good, right? It was towards the end of their relationship with Intel, touch bar, bad keyboard, just USB-C ports. Like there were reasons to fear that, and we talked about it on the shows a lot. And then they made this turn with the Apple Silicon machines, and now we're in a place where both the iPad and the Mac seem pretty healthy, and that's not always been the case, but it sure is nice that it's the case right now.
Yeah, I do wonder whether I would have wanted to switch back to the Mac, or whether I would have done it would have jumped in with both feet the way I did if iPad OS 26 with windowing was available back in 2021. Because that whole, there are still a lot of things about the iPad, I think, that make it not exactly a computer still in the way that the Mac is a computer. But boy, that was a big one.
Yeah. I feel like they missed a window with the iPad. We talked about that on a recent show. It's like, now the concern is that they've added some power features and background memory management and all that. The question is, will pro apps come to the iPad, or have those developers already, just given up on the iPad as a platform? And that's a question.
So many people, when the iPad came out and it had that huge burst of sales, and people were talking about how, this is a car and not a truck, and everybody buys cars. People don't look on the street. People buy trucks.
Yeah.
But they did miss the window when everyone was excited about the iPad. They did. If Apple really wanted that to be the computer that we all used, they didn't give it what it needed back in those early years.
So where does the iPad fit for you today? Are you using it at all?
It's sitting next to me right now as my second screen.
Sure.
For my Mac, which is now an M4 MacBook Pro. So it's that, and it's a content consumption device. I don't really do things on it the way I did for a few years there. I'm just using it for what I think is its sweet spot.
Yeah, the iPad as a Mac utility device, though, like as a second screen, as I keep wanting to call it caboose, but it's not caboose. What's
sidecar?
Sidecar, yeah,
sidecar.
It's a sidecar device. But I think a lot of people have iPads in drawers that they should be exploring that, because it's actually quite useful to have it next to your Mac. Even just like if you don't go sidecar with it, like let's say you want a YouTube playing in the background while you're doing busy work. Why not put it on the iPad and give you the full Mac screen for your actual work? There's just you'll find all sorts of uses for it if you keep it next to your Mac.
Absolutely, and I know that I'm kind of an unusual case for people here, but one of the things I use it for when it's not in sidecar mode, when it's not it's a second screen, but it's operating independently, is to look at documentation.
Yeah.
When I'm over here writing a script or something on the screen of my Mac, I'm checking the documentation on the iPad.
Yeah.
It works wonderfully that way.
I do the same thing with all the videos I make for the labs and the field guides. I outline them these days in Notion, but I run Notion on the iPad separately so I can look at the outline while I'm sitting here recording without having the outline on the Mac screen, which is often getting recorded. So it's just there are a lot of uses for it. How about the iPhone? You got your shiny new orange iPhone Pro?
I have a shiny new iPhone, but it is not orange.
Oh, wait a second. You didn't tell us that. We need to. I'm sorry. We got to stop right here. Which one did you get?
I got the blue one.
Okay. How you like it?
And I like it a lot. What's not to like? And let's get into the orange thing, because right now I'm wearing an orange shirt, and right now I have I'm wearing my Apple Watch, of course, and recently I bought from Nomad an orange band and a blue band, because orange and blue are the colors of my alma mater. And so I'm an orange fan. I have orange sweatshirts. I have lots of orange gear and stuff because of my relationship with the University of Illinois. And so I should be a person who bought the orange iPhone. It didn't look like the right orange to me.
Okay.
It looked a little too rusty. And I just decided, no, I'm gonna go with the more conservative blue, which is a nice blue, but it's not the orange one. And I if people feel that they're going to get sick of the orange, I can understand that.
Never can such a thing happen. Are you kidding?
I'm just saying, it's not my orange. It's an orange, and I'm sure it ticks the box for a lot of people. It's not my orange.
Okay. Well, I'm good to know. I like it. One thing I wanted to ask you guys, now that we've had it for a while, are either of you using the transparent icons or the tone matched icons? Have you guys explored that at all on your home screen?
No. I've seen it.
I kind of like it. I don't know, man.
Yeah, you're a weird guy, David.
I am.
I don't know.
I like the fact that it's just like it's less distracting, and now you can very easily match it to the frame of your phone or the color of your case, or you can just pick a color on the screen, and it's way better than it was in the last version. And I do think I'm an outlier here, but I have been kind of enjoying having a monotone screen on my phone.
Now, what little I've seen of like screenshots of it is it reminds me of the sort of wireframe models that used to be what computer 3D looked like way back when I was very young, and in movies like Escape from New York or Tron, even, or something like that. Oh, this is what computer graphics looks like, and it's always a wireframe kind of thing.
Now you're making me like it even more.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see liking that. Indeed, I can see liking that more than the orange phone. But I haven't played with it yet. I've still got my regular icons there. I have a black background on my phone. I don't have anything special in the wallpaper or anything like that.
Oh, that makes you very, very susceptible to this. In fact, everybody listening, just turn it on 2 days. Just leave it on 2 days and see what you think.
Yeah, it's not really for me either. I've played with it a lot, and I realized that I use the color of the icon to find the app. And there's an alternative design that's like floated around the internet where it's a clear icon, but like the thing in the center of the icon has some color. So, for instance, the Safari icon would be that clear material, but with the blue compass on it. that seems like a cool middle ground
Oh.
I could get behind, but it is cool, but it's just not quite for me.
There's only like 6 icons on my home screen. It's not a big deal. Yeah, but I like it. So I'm buying in for a little while. Who knows? Maybe I'll switch it up back to the colored icons at some point. But
You are going to switch again.
oh yeah,
because you don't stick with anything for too long.
Yeah, I like variety, but I will say, see, Steven's problem shows up in the app library when you go to the app library because you're looking for a color, but on the home screen it's not a problem.
Oh yeah, and they all become very small.
Yeah. Oh, they don't become small because the proper way to do it is to use the large size without the names. I mean, I have a definite opinion on that. And that's when I never switched back. Last year, I turned off, I made the icons. If you go in on your home screen, you long press, there's a customize button in the top left corner. There's a setting in there where you can make the icons larger and remove the names. I don't need to know that little compass is Safari. I know it, and I know all of that for all of my apps. So that's not a problem. And then the icons are bigger. I feel like that is the one true way to run your home screen icons.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that for my home screen. I can't, not in the app library though, because those are the things that I don't use often enough, and I really need the names.
Okay.
It's interesting what Stephen said about color as what drives him. And what makes me think I could go with these wireframe icons and stick with it potentially is that I don't go by color when I'm choosing. I go by position. And if I'm on the wrong screen and think I'm on my home screen and I'm on the second screen, I will click where the icon that pCalc is where it's supposed to be, and I'll launch something else. That happens all the time with me. I'm location centric rather than color centric.
I mean, and the oddball thing for me is I have built in my dock these shortcuts, which are kind of like launcher shortcuts. One is personal, one is Mac Sparky. And anything I normally do on my phone has been wired into a shortcut under that menu. So like I won't open OmniFocus and add a new task. Instead, I'll just do it from the personal or the work shortcut, and then it'll do a bunch of the work for me because it's a shortcut, right? And so maybe that's one of the reasons why I like the monochrome stuff, because I just don't tap on the icons that much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Anyway,
that makes sense.
Anyway, yeah, I think it's worth an experiment, gang. If you haven't turned it on, see what you think. Write in for the feedback show. Tell me how wrong I am. That's never stopped anybody before.
So I should mention here that getting this phone was quite unusual. I've been on a 3-year plan.
Okay.
I've been updating my phone every 3rd year.
That's about right.
For a few, triples of generations now. And I had the 16 Pro and I bought the 17 Pro. And this is the first time I have updated year after year on year since the 5 and the 5S.
What sucked you in?
It was the phone. It was the camera.
Yeah.
It was the 8X camera, because when I'm out in my kayak and I'm going along a canal or a stream and there's a heron or a snowy egret or a set of turtles off to the side, I want to get in on them and I want to pull them in. And everything that, honestly, I ordered the phone before I read all the nice reviews of the camera, but luckily, before I got the camera, I started seeing the reviews that said that I had done the right thing, and the 8X does work really nicely.
Yeah. Much bigger sensor, allows you to zoom in. Yeah,
exactly. And I know it's not true 8X, but I think is the number of pixels at 8X basically the same as what it used to be at 5X? I can't remember.
Yeah, you're getting a 12 megapixel picture at 8X.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so they're nice, and I have the 8X pictures that I've taken so far have been very nice. I'm very pleased with it, and so that was the main thing, was the camera. That because of when I'm out doing things, I don't want to have a second camera with me. I just want to have my iPhone. but I want to be able to bring things in that are farther away. I want to bring them in closer.
Apple, has shockingly small engineering teams for all the stuff they make. It's not that many people making some of our favorite Apple apps. But the big exception is the camera. They've got a huge team on hardware and software for the camera because that's what sells iPhones. I mean,
it sells iPhones. Absolutely.
My sister upgraded from a 5-year-old iPhone to the new one. And she called me the other day. She's like, I can't believe how good these pictures are. I'm like, well, you waited 5 years, of course.
Right.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, my photos are better than on my original iPhone too.
Yeah,
than they were from that. A little bit.
So you've got this beautiful new blue phone, which is really nice. If there had not been orange, I would have gone blue. Are you using a case with this phone? Are you normally a case person?
I am normally a case person. I started using a case with the 6S, and I did that because when I went to the Apple Store, I didn't buy that right away. Mm-hmm. I went to the Apple Store first to see what it was like. And when I picked it up, it slipped out of my hand immediately and fell on the table. And I decided, because of the rounded edges, the fives had those, what I considered, and the fours had that really nice squared off edge that I loved. And I thought, and I was caseless with those phones because I could hold them and I felt comfortable holding them. But when Apple rounds the edges off, or the sides, I don't feel as comfortable. And so when I ordered the phone, I also ordered Apple's clear case, thinking that would be fine because I've had, with my 16 Pro, I had the Smartish case, which is a clear case. And I had bought it because I had a natural titanium phone and I wanted that to show through. And I think Merlin Mann had posted something about the Smartish case, and they were inexpensive, and it was a great case. It had a very nice textured edge that, it's basically impossible to drop. And to me, my case is not to protect my phone when it's dropped. It's to prevent me from dropping it in the first place. It's there to provide the grip that makes me feel comfortable holding the phone. And I very seldom drop a phone. And it's because I make sure that I have a good grip. When the phone and the smart case came together in the same package, I opened everything up and started putting everything together. And I picked up the phone with the smart case on and immediately dropped it back onto the table that I had picked it up from. And just like with the 6S. And I thought to myself at first, well, that's just me not used to this, so I'm going to hang on to. Let's leave it for a while and see how things go. And I did all the updates and things like that. And I don't know. After an hour or two, I just said, "This case is too slippery. I don't understand why a plastic case should be this slippery. It was slipperier than the phone itself." And, some of that may have been the material. Some of it may also have been the shape. But it and my hands were not compatible. So I took it back the next day and I ordered a Nomad leather case. I had been a happy customer of Apple's leather cases for a few generations. And I knew always that, if I had shopped around, I could get probably a better deal on or maybe nicer leather. Didn't matter to me. It was easy to buy the Apple cases. They had decent colors. I just bought them. And then, of course, when leather went away, I did the Smartish. And then this year, I thought the clear case was going to be like the Smartish, maybe even better. No, it was much worse. So I returned it. I ordered a Nomad case. And it arrived yesterday. Now, this is my second Nomad case for this phone because the first one I ordered, I'm not exactly sure how I managed to do this, but I ordered the case for the Pro Max. And when it showed up and I took it out of the package, before I took it out of the package, just the box said, "Oh, this is the wrong phone, even before I saw the word Max on it.
Yeah.
I said, oh, this is going to be the wrong case. Shucks. I'm going to have to go a few more days without a case. And I did. But anyway, I have the case on now, and I like it.
I've used the Nomad case for a couple of generations now. Like you, was a fan of the Apple leather case and was not a fan of anything they've replaced it with. And the Nomad case is really great. And one thing I like about it is that the opening for the camera plateau is all open. Some of these cases are like covering up the aluminum. So you have the cameras and then you have the flash and the LiDAR and stuff. And he's like, I picked this color. I'd like to see a little bit of that color through the back of the case. And their buttons feel good. The leather is nice. I really have been happy with them.
Yeah, I haven't had it long enough to see how the camera button, which I'm not a big fan of anyway, but how the camera button works. But it seems to, I've accidentally pressed it a few times as I'm picking the phone up, which is very much like what it was when it was caseless.
Mm-hmm.
So it is translating it's translating my finger presses exactly the way the phone without a case translates them.
Yeah, one thing I changed, because I found myself doing that as well, is in the camera control settings, you can say you have to double click to launch the camera. And that has solved sort of the accidental, the camera's been on in my pocket for a minute kind of problem.
Yeah, I should have. I should have done that by now, because I thank you for reminding me of it. Every time, for whatever reason, when I do it and the camera, and I pick it up and the camera comes on, or it just turns on because I clicked it, I think, next time I've got a minute here, I'm going to go change that setting, and of course, and I never do.
Mm-hmm.
So with luck, I will remember after this podcast to do that.
So, Stephen, are you using the Leather Nomad this year too on your phone?
I am. Yeah. So I will be caseless once it's fully jeans weather, but it's not fully jeans weather yet. So in shorts weather, I'm a case user.
Ah, interesting. Yeah.
Yes, they shoot out of your shorts. You don't need that.
Yeah,
they are very slippery.
I'm still in my honeymoon phase with this orange, so I've been caseless.
You want to see it all?
Yeah, I mean, just fully exposed, But but I do have the Apple new tech woven case. It's supposed to be orange, but it's kind of brown, and it seems pretty nice. And I've put it on a few times when I was going out, where I thought, well, this is a place where I could drop my phone. And, it's kind of like somebody said, when you put your bicycle helmet on, you put your phone case on, that kind of stuff, which Steven should absolutely do. Both.
Always wear a helmet. Come on.
All right.
Do you feel, David, that that the color of this tech woven works with the orange?
It works enough. I mean, I don't know. I'm not that particular. I think it looks fine with it. And I thought this was the one that they really made for it, but in hindsight, it doesn't entirely, it's way more brown than orange. But it's a nice case. And I mean, I'm a big fan of leather cases, but I haven't had one in years. So you guys have me thinking about this, but I, for now, I'm just going to use this tech woven one, and it's fine when I need a case. Do you do the thing where you put your name on the inside of the case with a $20 bill?
No.
That's the trick. Get a label maker, put your name and your wife's phone number, or your friend's phone number, or your email address, or obviously don't put your phone number on it, is my point.
Right.
And then
yeah, calling me doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
When they've got my phone.
Put that in there and slide a 20 in there, just in case you get in a jam, And because you're going to put a case on, why not, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I have never done that. Well, of course, last year when I had, it would have looked weird with the
clear one.
Smartest case. Yes.
This episode of Mac Power Users is brought to you by 1Password. Go to onepassword.com/MPU to sign up for a free 30-day trial with 20% off when you check out. 1Password is great for use at home or as an individual, but it's also great at work. At Relay and at CrossForward, we rely on 1Password to keep our logins, bank account information, secure notes, and more safe and sound. And it's really easy to add people. Creating a new account, sending invitation, and onboarding new employees is really simple. Administrators can verify multiple domains, enforce account signup restrictions, and ensure that any attempts to create individual accounts are redirected to join your company's 1Password instead. Then you have greater control over company data and a more streamlined, secure onboarding process. Rolling out 1Password across an organization can take time with large teams, but the invitations page design really makes it simple and straightforward. Administrators can save time and improve the overall user experience, and it sets the stage. This new design sets the stage for 1Password to continue to improve the onboarding experience. You can learn more about this on 1Password's website, and if you go to onepassword.com/MPU, you can sign up for a free 30-day trial. And once that trial's up, you're going to want to join, of course, and you'll get 20% off. Again, that's onepassword.com/MPU.
I wanted to catch up with you, Dr. Drang. You are always on kind of the edge of a lot of technologies. Since the last time we talked, large language models have become a bit of a sensation. And I was curious what you think about all this, I guess, in terms of Apple Intelligence and kind of the big AI movement going on in general.
Yeah, I mean, I feel I've written about my use of LLMs a few times, and they've always been disappointing. No, not always been disappointing. In one case, it actually worked out quite well, but the others have been disappointing. And it comes down to, well, ultimately, it's hallucinations. And for whatever reason, the things that I was interested in are, of course, things that I know a lot about, which you probably should not use LLMs for things that you know a lot about, because you will know more than the LLMs. But the other thing is, so this was basically structural engineering stuff. I was asking it structural engineering questions. Can you do this? Can you do this? What's the answer to this kind of problem? That sort of thing. And then, and originally, it just like 2 years ago or so, maybe it was 3 years ago. Anyway, the first time I did it, both OpenAI and Claude just failed miserably. And they couldn't even do math. Like, they would lay out a formula that was often wrong, and then they'd plug numbers in, and then they wouldn't get the right number. They wouldn't do the multiplications and divisions correctly. So it was quite eye-opening to see a computer not being able to do arithmetic.
There's the joke about AI that it knows everything about everything except the stuff that I'm good at.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly.
Think about that for a minute, right?
That's the thing, though. It's like, if you don't know enough about it, about a topic, you don't know that the AI is wrong.
Exactly.
That's what worries me, of course, about it. And that is why I think that the use of LLMs for what I know you use it for, David, actually, which is for coming up with automations and scripting and things like that, I think it is probably pretty good at that. Now, people who are professional programmers undoubtedly don't think that way, because, again, that's their specialty, and they see the world differently. They see the world of programming the same way I see the world of structural engineering. But one thing that is true about programming and getting even just small bits of scripts from AI is that you can immediately test them. and the truth or the accuracy of the code that they produce can be determined more or less immediately. Now, the more complicated things you want to do, the more edge cases you may miss in your testing. That's all true. But for simple things, and the example that I was happy with was coming up with some SQL for a database query, the database of my technical books that I've been making this past year. And I don't know SQL. Well, by the way, I always say SQL instead of SQL. Forgive me. I don't know SQL. I never learned it really, other than some very elementary stuff. And so I thought, well, this would be a good opportunity to to get some code out of the ChatGPT, I think it was, that I was using. And also I could learn some things, because there was actually a query that I needed, and I didn't really know how to do it. And rather than digging through a bunch of documentation, I'll give it to ChatGPT and see. And there were actually a few queries that I wanted. It did the first one perfectly. It did the second one incorrectly. It was immediately obvious even to me that it was incorrect, but I did try it, in the database, and it didn't work as I expected. And I went back to ChatGPT and said, "Oh no, this doesn't work. This is what happens when I run it." And the second one came back, and it was right. And I tweaked it a little bit before putting it into my code, but it was fundamentally right. And I could tell that it was fundamentally right because I was able to put it in my code and run tests, and test after test after test, to make sure that I hit the edge cases that at least I could think of. And so I think it was good that way, because again, you can immediately check. Whereas if you're checking for, how many home runs did Michael Jordan hit for the Birmingham Barons during those years when he was away from basketball, ChatGPT or any of them could come up with an answer. And if you don't know the answer, you don't know whether it's making something up or not. You just don't know. The only way to know is to look it up through some other source that you trust, which is kind of defeats the purpose. Whereas with coding, there are two things about it. One, there's an awful lot of code on the internet that these LLMs have sucked in and learned, in quotes. And the other thing is, as I say, you can test it right away. And I think it makes using LLMs for code worthwhile. Now, I haven't done it. I haven't done it after that, because I still like to learn it myself.
And also, you're a very accomplished programmer. And I think that's...
I'm an experienced programmer. I've been doing it for a long time, but I have been an amateur all of those years, 45 plus years that I've been programming. I have been doing it not because I learned it the right way, not because I have a computer science degree or anything like that. It's just when you do something that many years, you have a certain amount of skill at it typically. But I am definitely an amateur at it. You're not going to compare me to Craig Hockenberry or people
Sure.
like that, but who also has lots of years of experience. But it is true that I could tell, even though I don't know SQL particularly well, I could tell that the second one it gave me was going to be wrong, and it was. But it corrected itself when I gave it the right kind of information about how it was wrong. So that was nice. But again, I like the challenge of, as we were talking about, I like the challenge of coming up with my solutions. So I haven't used it much since that little testing.
Yeah, like for someone like me, it's like you and I would say are automators. We're not, programmers. We use bits of code to get things done. I have taken some of your Python stuff, for instance, and I've taken some of Sal Segoyan's JavaScript stuff, and I'll just put it into an LM and say, break this down to me and explain what's going on, because sometimes
Oh, cool.
I just don't even understand what you've done. So like I'm below you on the spectrum of ability. So this
Mm,
gives me a way to understand it. I've also had it say try and make something for me, and I've heard from a lot of people in the Max Sparky Labs who are doing similar things. It's making automation tools more available to them. But another piece of LLMs that to me has suddenly become more useful is what I like to call lovingly donkey work. And the arrival of MCPs, I was going to ask you about that next if you've played with them, but model context protocol is a way you can have an LLM run instructions on a specific application. We just had this week, as we're recording, OpenAI is making about a bunch of app integration announcements. It seems like they kind of want to become the operating system. But as an example, I'm using an MCP, and I noticed there were some typos in my OmniFocus entries. And I said, go through all of my entries in OmniFocus, probably a couple thousand, and check grammar on all of them and fix any typos. And it says, sure thing, Sparky. And then, like, 20 seconds later, there's no more typos in my OmniFocus database, and like that kind of stuff to me is very interesting for us to use and explore. And, the thing about these LLMs, they showed up saying, well, it can write your college essay for you. Well, I don't want it to, but this is the kind of stuff I do want it to do. I want it to give me time to work on the important stuff and take care of donkey work. And suddenly, I feel like they're much more capable of that with this MCP. Have you tried any of that stuff out?
I have not. And, I will say, I don't know how anyone, a lot of people, a lot of the resistance to LLMs, and it's part of mine as well. I mean, I'm not just talking about other people. The resistance is, well, I don't want that taken away from me. I've spent a lot of time learning how to do certain things. I don't want that taken away from me. And I don't see how anyone, because everybody knows how to find it. Well, you may not know the most efficient way to find typos, but everyone knows a typo when it's finally put in front of them clearly. And it's hard to argue that having an LLM go through and fix typos is somehow a terrible thing and a dehumanizing thing. So I think that's an excellent thing. The thing with MCPs, and I know virtually nothing about it, so of course I'll talk about it. What interests me the most about it is the stories, and David, you had a post about it recently, about how it appears, I guess, from betas that Apple is leaning into this.
Yeah.
As a way, and what it reminds me of is what OS 10 was like in the early days. OS 10 back in the early 2000s leaned a lot on free software, like Apache was a web server. And I can't remember what the printing service was, but it was one that had been around I had been using it on Linux, back when I was a Linux user. And Apple stuff, the Mac's stuff, because Mac and Apple were synonymous at the time, leaned a lot on open source software. And it was a way of Apple wedging its way in and providing services that it couldn't provide itself yet. And Apple has sort of drifted away from some of that over the years as it's become more capable and as it's accumulated more money. But with MCP, it's being backward again. It's behind the times. And so it's funny to me that they have done what they did in the early 2000s. Okay, now it's not exactly open source, but it's a more open standard. We're going to rely on this other open standard to get some of the work done that our people can't do. Yeah. We don't have the horses to do this yet. And that to me is very interesting. Also, the question becomes then, in a few years, maybe as many as 10 years, because it's hard to say exactly how behind Apple is, I think, but I think really behind on this. In some number of years, will Apple try to claw this back and move away from MCP and turn itself back into a walled garden the way it is on so many other things?
Yeah, I would say absolutely when they can, just knowing Apple. But the question is how far are they behind is an interesting one to me, and I think the answer to that depends on what's happening right now. Is the upper end of what we can do with an LLM slowing, or is it accelerating? And if it's slowing, then Apple's going to look great because they didn't spend
Yeah.
$100 billion building server farms, and they'll be able to catch up pretty quickly. If it's accelerating, then this MCP thing may be around a while. But I do think a new way to think about LLMs that's emerging, I just want to say generally, is donkey work. Think about that. Is there a way you can put an LLM to work to do things for you that you don't want to do, like importing tons of data? I had to put like 100 entries into a Notion database. Well, Notion now has an agentic, it's not called MCP, but they have an in-body agent now. And I said, here's a list of things in a CSV file, make new entries in my Notion database first. I could have done that. I could have spent 3 hours typing them in, and I don't have to do that anymore. And not only that, I said, any field, any of the metadata fields that are empty, use your best judgment and just fill them in for me. And it was generally right, So that's the kind of stuff I think all of us should be thinking about. Like, don't let it take over your creative work, the stuff that makes you uniquely human, but maybe let it take over the stuff that is grunt work.
Yeah, I mean that does make perfect sense. And I'm curious though about Notion. Is this agentic system that they have, is that in lieu of an API?
No, they also have MCP support. Like, I can control it from Claude, or I can control it inside Notion.
I'm thinking more. I'm sorry, but I'm thinking more of like a traditional API, because you said you had all this data in as a CSV file, and so does Notion not have a way of importing, like a way of calling code to import a CSV file into?
It absolutely could do that. But what that import engine can't do is say, use your best guess as to the channel field. For me, the stuff I put in can go to the labs or to the blog or to the podcast. I said, use your best guess to figure that field out, because I don't have data on that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it'll go through and do it. And when you check it, it's 95% correct, because it looks at the other stuff I've done. It knows my preference.
How much of you has it looked at? How much into Notion are you, so that it has a way? I'm interviewing you now.
Yeah, okay.
So it knows your preferences and how you would categorize things.
Well, because I have some people helping me, I moved into Notion in a big way with the Mac Sparky data a few years ago, and it knows a ton, because every blog post gets done in Notion. Every video I make for the labs, a transcript gets loaded to Notion. I'm in Stephen and I are getting the Mac Power Users transcripts in. I mean, almost all of the content I've ever made, it can scrub on my little private Notion island. So it's got a lot of information about me. So when I ask it to do something, it's got a real good idea of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, that certainly sounds like an excellent use of it. As a retired person, I don't have that use right now.
Yeah, like one of the things I asked it was, it knows on my blog posts, and I really don't want it writing for me, but I'll say, hey, based on what I've written over the last 6 months, what are some ideas you think I should cover? And it'll say, hey, you wrote about this thing 6 months ago, you never followed up on it. Maybe you should follow up on it. And it's like, yeah, that's actually a good idea. So that kind of stuff. All right. Well, sorry, I didn't mean to switch that on you. So now that segment we'll call is Drang asking Sparky about LLMs. But I was just curious with your expertise and all, you have been around a certain number of years playing with computers. I feel like I'm not far behind you, and it's kind of exciting to see a new, apple cart get turned over in the world of computing. I feel like this is one of those.
Yeah, I do think that there's a bubble that's going to be burst here, because there is way too much spending going on right now.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, and certainly lots of people have said this is not me being smart, is what's left when the bubble is burst. What remnants are we still going to have that are still working, and that people will continue to use? And I don't know the answer to that, but I suspect a certain amount of, for lack of a better term, vibe coding will still be around, because we continue to need to write code and more code as time goes on. I don't think that's going to go away, or somebody has to write it. It has to get written, to use passive voice. So that'll be left. And this agentic stuff, whether it's MCP or something that happens after MCP, that doesn't matter. It's using it for doing other things, connecting it up to databases or however other data. And saying, I think that in some form has to be left.
Yeah, it's already useful, so it's not going away.
Yeah.
And to me, the big question is, what is the acceleration curve on improvement? Like, we had massive jumps from ChatGPT 2 to 3, 3 to 4. It's a question as to whether 5 is as big of a jump. Some people say it is, some people say it isn't. I'm not smart enough to really know. But if we're reaching kind of a slowdown point with LLM development, that's going to give us the parameters of where we're going here. What we can do with that actually helps Apple if that's the case.
Yeah, I was going to say, as you said, it absolutely helps Apple, because the way things look from the outside, because we don't know what's going on, what Apple's AI stuff is like inside the company, inside Cupertino. But from the outside, it looks like, okay, yes, Apple is improving. Apple Intelligence is improving, but it's not as improving as fast as Claude is.
Yeah.
And it's not improving as fast as ChatGPT is. So for every step that they take that we can see, it looks like these other companies are taking 2 steps or maybe more. And if that's the case, they never catch up.
Yeah. However, if the top slows down,
right.
And they go with MCP, and they take advantage of the big engines, suddenly they're in the game again, because they own so many users, and users want their data kind of privately managed. And I feel like there's a scenario that plays out really well for them, and they look like heroes on Wall Street because they didn't spend all the money, but they still kind of got the benefit of it. And the inverse is, no, this stuff is accelerating. It's they're going to take 10 steps for each step Apple takes, and suddenly Apple's just left in the dust. And that's not out of beyond the realm of possibility at this point, really.
It's not. And the other thing is, if even if the acceleration is not that great, if there's any acceleration, Apple continues to fall behind. And if the slowdown doesn't occur for another 3 to 5 years, well, it's probably at least another 3 to 5 years after that before Apple catches up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's astonishing, although we have seen it in the tech business before, that Apple kind of didn't get into this a few years ago, when it would have been easier for them to do. And now they are just scrambling.
Yeah.
And Apple hasn't been sweating for a while, and you can see it. They are desperate. to get things going here.
Well, the scenario I talked about where Apple comes out smelling like a rose, where things slow down and they get the benefit without spending the money, that I will never believe was the intentional strategy. I think they,
yeah,
they
right.
got caught, flat-footed here. And the thing, and I didn't, this isn't a new show. We don't usually get too much into this, but since we're here this week, the announcements from the development conference for OpenAI make their intentions very clear. I don't know if you guys have followed it, but they've got app integrations now. You can order your groceries from ChatGPT. You can buy something on Etsy. And it's like they want to become the intermediary between you and the world. They want to replace the operating system. And they have huge ambition here. And I don't know if that'll come to fruition or not. But there could be a world in the future where our whole interface to what we now call the internet is a chatbot or something, whatever the chatbot becomes. And we don't go to websites. We just tell our chatbot, hey, make sure that I never run out of paper towels. And it says, sure thing. And then they show up when you need them, and these guys are really ambitious, and that model does not involve Apple. If it succeeds,
right? I don't know if you read as we record the latest Stratechery by Ben Thompson. He talks exactly about this. That OpenAI wants to position itself in the place where Microsoft was 20 years ago, or 20 to 30 years ago, when Microsoft was like the computer company and everything kind of flowed through Microsoft in one way or another. That he sees as OpenAI's goal.
No, but I'm going to read that because Ben is a pretty smart guy, and
he is. And this was it's a really good article, and I think it may have come out today.
Oh, you're ahead of me, but yeah, I do think this is a real thing that's happening, and I guess we'll just have to see how it all plays out. This episode of the Mac Power Users is brought to you by Ecamm. Go to ecamm.com/MPU for a powerful live streaming platform for Mac and get 1 month for free. If you're looking to get into video, you need Ecamm. Ecamm Live is the leading video production and live streaming studio built just for the Mac. It's great for streaming, recording, podcasting, and presenting. If you want to stand out from the crowd, you need high-quality video. And with Ecamm, you can screen share, use multiple cameras, and even direct the show in real time with their live camera switcher. It's great for simplifying your workflow, too, because you can do everything from the Ecamm app. Use Ecamm to get started quickly and have everything on hand to create whatever you need with video. What's most impressive about Ecamm is just how they've got all the bases covered. Do you want to capture from HDMI? They do that. If you want to screen and audio capture or do video playback, they've got that. Or you can just plug in your iPhone and your iPad and share the screen to use it as a camera. One of the big problems with these types of systems is getting the audio mix right. Ecamm has that covered as well. Let Ecamm handle your audio mix and echo cancellation automatically. Another great thing about Ecamm is you can add your own stamp to your videos with logos, titles, lower thirds, and graphics. And you can drop in video clips, bring on interview guests, and use a green screen. There's just so much more. Ecamm Live does it all. Ecamm's members are marketing professionals, podcasters, musicians, church leaders, bloggers, and content creators of all kinds. If you're on the Pro plan, you can enjoy Ecamm for Zoom. That lets you automatically send Ecamm's live audio and video output into a Zoom meeting, Zoom webinar, or Zoom event, and add up to 8 Zoom participants as camera sources in your broadcast or recording. Plus, you can automatically create individual participant audio and video recordings and add Zoom chat messages to your broadcast or recording as text overlays. To get 1 month free today, just go to ecamm.com/MPU and use the code MPU. That's a whole month free of Ecamm Live at ecamm.com/MPU with the code MPU. Go there now and check it out. And our thanks to Ecamm for their support of the Mac Power Users and all of Relay.
So, Dr. Drang, one thing you write a fair bit about on your site is automation, and I would love to hear some of the automation tools that you turn to when it's time to work on something. The Mac has really a rich collection of tools, everything from the command line all the way up to something like shortcuts. Where do you tend to fall on that spectrum?
Well, we'll talk about whether shortcuts is on the way up or not as we go along. But I think I have kind of, I would say, my approach to automation is pretty boring. I try to use very well debugged and old tools as much as I can. So I do almost all of my traditional type programming in Python now, and I've been doing that for about 20 years after moving on from Perl. And I did that. I got into Python originally because of Python's ability, what's called NumPy. Its numerical stack of and set of libraries, because I wanted to do that for my work. I wanted to be able to use that stuff for the work I made money from. But I have since Python has sort of since taken over almost everything that I do in some way or another. But of course, that means typically you would end up running things from a command line, and I have no problem running my scripts from a command line, but sometimes it's much nicer to do it through where you select something in the Finder and then run a filter on it or whatever. And so for that, I tend to use Keyboard Maestro now, which is something that MPU listeners are ridiculously familiar with. And I use it because Keyboard Maestro works. I'm not a big fan of, generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of these visual programming systems, but somehow Keyboard Maestro does a very good job of it. And its great advantage, it has so many tools inside itself. It has such good connections to external tools like shell scripts or other types of scripts and shortcuts even. And it has just enough GUI hooks that I can write a script in Python that does what I want, but whose user interface, being the command line, isn't necessarily all that friendly. Keyboard Maestro can put the friendly face on the command line script that I wrote. And so I love it for that, and I use it all the time. And it's deep enough that I still learn things about Keyboard Maestro almost every time I use it.
Well, and I would add on to that, because I feel like Keyboard Maestro is just such a great tool on the Mac, that for someone like you who's very adept at using terminal and Python to get a lot of things done, I would guess there are still some things in your automation desires that don't easily lend themselves to Python script or to terminal commands, but there's a Keyboard Maestro action that kind of fits the bill for you. Whether it's like a specific interaction with, the Safari reading list, or just gluing these two things together, where it would be kind of tedious to do that manually, but Keyboard Maestro does give you kind of the extra bits to make that stuff even better. Am I right?
I definitely have. I don't know how many Keyboard Maestro macros I have, but it's a very, very large number. And they're not all, going off and running Python or shell scripts. Many of them are just, you need to click here and then enter this text in a field, and then click over here and hit this button, and then take the result of that and do something with it, and then paste it over here. It's very much that sort of thing is probably the bulk of what I do. And, it to some extent, it gives me the opportunity to include things in regular GUI programs that I use that I think those programs should have. They should have a command that allows me to do this, or they should have, there should be a keyboard shortcut that works for this, not a menu command, because of course you can do that through the Mac OS system to change the keyboard shortcuts of menu commands. But this is something a little bit more complicated. There's a button that doesn't have a name, or even if it's a button that does have a name, and clicking that button should be done through a keyboard command because of how I happen to use the program. I can do that in Keyboard Maestro. And that doesn't involve any traditional scripting whatsoever. And so, yes, it's a huge thing, and I use it all the time for that sort of stuff.
I recently moved all of my text expansion stuff into Keyboard Maestro, and that was an area of the app that I hadn't really explored because I had another solution for it, and I've been very impressed with it. I mean, it basically was like a drop-in replacement for Text Expander, and that's just like one small corner of the features in this application.
It is, and I used to do that. I did that as well for several years when people got upset, and I was one of them, about Text Expander going to a subscription service.
Sure.
And I said, well, I'll just move over to Keyboard Maestro, and it worked. It worked beautifully. The one thing that it didn't do that was difficult in using Keyboard Maestro that way as a Text Expander replacement was when I want to make a temporary expansion. And it wasn't easy to do that. Whereas with Text Expander or Typinator, which is what I use now, it's very easy to make temporary ones. So if I'm writing a report about a particular device, back when I was writing reports about a particular device, and I need to give it an exact name, and I need that name to be the same throughout the report, I will make a shortcut. It's not a shortcut, whatever it's called. For that, it's much faster to do that in a purpose-built expansion program like Text Expander or Typinator. I tried to come up with a way of doing that within Keyboard Maestro, and it was kind of a kludge. It didn't work all that well. And as a result, when I was using Keyboard Maestro for my text expansion, I tended not to make these temporary ones. And so my productivity, I think, went down during that period. And now it's back up because I have Typinator, and I can add these. I can add a phrase to my temporary group of expansions, and then every few months I'll go through and look at that group, the temporary group, and get rid of the ones that I no longer need, and maybe move the other ones into another group because I have found that they were more useful than that one time that I thought they were going to be useful.
Now, where does shortcuts fit in all this? You gave us a tempting statement earlier.
Shortcuts does not fit. I will not use shortcuts on the Mac. I have tried, and I find it absolutely infuriating. I think the Shortcuts app is a terrible app. I'm going to go crazy on this one. The only reason I use Shortcuts is because it is the only place to go for my iPhone, and I do like having certain automations on my iPhone. But I don't see anything that Shortcuts does on the Mac that I can't do a different way, much faster, much more reliably, and without horrible frustration. And every several months I get a stupid idea in my head. Well, I'm going to give Shortcuts another try. Mm-hmm. And I always end up disappointed by it. And this is not the kind, and people who use Shortcuts a lot are probably some of someone like Federico Vitici is his criticisms of shortcuts, I take to heart, because obviously he uses it all the time, and every time there's a new version of the operating system, things go badly with shortcuts, which is something that never happens. First, I don't think it's ever happened to me in Keyboard Maestro. It wouldn't surprise me that at sometime in Keyboard Maestro's history that sort of thing has happened, but I don't remember it ever happening. And it certainly never happens in shell scripts or Python scripts or Perl scripts or any things like that. And it's a regular occurrence with shortcuts. And as I said, I find shortcuts very difficult to use. I don't think it's a very good Mac program. And I can't come up with any, I apologize, I can't come up with a specific example. But when I'm using it, I keep thinking, well, shouldn't clicking here do this? Why do I have to do this a second? It just seems wrong. It's like it wasn't put together by people who know how Macs work, and the sort of grammar that Macintosh users have about their interactions with the machine. We expect certain things to work in a particular way, and they don't in the Shortcuts app. I find it very difficult to make shortcuts. I have often thought that if it weren't for the fact that I started programming using a key punch machine for punch cards, that Shortcuts would be the worst programming environment I've ever used. I can't stand it.
But you're being so obscure. I can't really understand. Do you really like it?
Do you want me to be more explicit, David?
It's funny, when I made the Shortcuts for Mac field guide, and that was years ago when they first released it. And I actually recorded that whole field guide like 3 times because it just kept changing, and it was pretty bad at the beginning. I think I'm more generous with it now because I see it.
But see, here's the thing, David. You are the most tolerant Apple user in the world. And I use you as a guide. I often, David's not that upset about this. Maybe I should back off a little bit on how bad I am. The problem with shortcuts is then I try to use shortcuts and I get frustrated again. But I can remember when you got upset about something to do with the iPad. And I do remember in particular, several years ago, you said, I've given up trying to use the iPad for anything other than what Apple clearly wants it to be used for. And I've been trying to use it like a, quote, real computer, unquote. I need to give up on that. And that followed, I believe, a few, for you, kind of angry posts.
Yeah.
And I thought, when you did that, I thought, oh, okay. Even David is fed up, up to his neck in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if he's mad about it, it's okay for me to be mad about it. And for me to be mad about it maybe 10 times more than he is.
Yeah. So what I would say is I agree with you that of all these platforms, it's the least stable. But I get emails from people who have learned shortcuts on the Mac, who are never going to open the terminal, much less learn how to program it or do a Python script. And frankly, even Keyboard Maestro might be a bridge too far for them. But they are getting automation done with shortcuts. And I think particularly with simple automations, that can be a thing,
I'm very happy for those people. And in particular, and whether it leads them to learn different tools, whether it leads them to move on to Keyboard or Maestro or not, it's great that they get something out of it. But I'm not in their position.
Yeah, exactly.
I have seen the other side. I know what it's like to program in a decent language and in a decent environment, and I can't live in shortcuts.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I would say is that there are people in the world who are not going to go the extra step, but they will load up the free app Shortcuts and they'll use it to do a data export or do something that they wouldn't otherwise do automatically. And I don't want to discourage that, because I think, there are different automation journeys for everyone.
Yeah, well, those people should not listen to me.
No, I think they should, because what you're saying is, if you go further, it gets better,
It does get better. It gets way better. And you will look back at what you did on shortcuts and say, Jesus, what was I doing? How could this possibly, oh my God, how terrible it is. Anyway, you get the sense that I really hate shortcuts.
Yeah,
Interestingly, when I'm putting together a shortcut on my phone, it's not as bad. And it's not just because it's not just Stockholm syndrome where that's the only game in town and I have to use it. The user interface for building shortcuts, even on the phone, and certainly on the iPad, it's better than on the phone, just seems more appropriate to the device I'm working on. Whereas when I'm trying to build a shortcut on the Mac, it's just, this is not a Mac program. What is going on here?
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I think is going to be a notch on the shortcuts belt is the app intents, which are starting to develop. If Apple's AI movement, Apple Intelligence gets better, a huge piece of it is going to be operating app intents to do stuff automatically for you. That's Apple's kind of big picture plan. And as a result, I think developers are going to get more aggressive about putting app intents into their automation routines, which will be a payoff for shortcuts too. So I think there will be some things that are just easier or maybe only possible using shortcuts. But I agree with you. The app needs work. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done with shortcuts. Trust me. I do think also there are some people for whom that's going to be the only automation avenue. And also I think as app intents become a bigger thing, shortcuts, even Dr. Drang may find some uses for it. I guess we have to have you come back in a few years and see if you soften on this.
Yeah, I think it'll be more than a few years, David, but we'll see. It would be so wonderful. I have written things on the blog, not recently, where, here's what's coming to shortcuts. This looks really good. I'm certainly older, and I like to think I'm wiser. It has to be shown to me now.
Yeah.
It really has to be shown to me, because, things that are similar to app intents, we've been promised before, and they didn't really come through. So I hope they do. And if they do, certainly a system provided by the first party should be the best, should be the easiest to use, and should do, if not the most, should do an awful lot of things and should be stable. It's the third-party stuff that should be unstable, not the first-party stuff. And shortcuts just has never been that.
The one thing you should be encouraged by is that now Apple's stock price is getting affected by its AI support, and this is something that would benefit from that. So maybe that'll be what pushes it over. I don't know. We always like to finish these up, though, talking about some of your favorite apps and services that don't get enough attention. What's on your list this year, Dr. Drang?
Well, okay, so I am one of the people who have moved to Kagi as my search engine. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what there is to say about it other than if you're old enough to remember what Google was like in the early days of Google, that's what Kagi is like now. You kind of get this. It's in some ways it's not quite that nice because we've already had that experience. Whereas the original Google was just sort of this amazing thing. It's not amazing, but it's reminiscent of what web search used to be like, and it's nice. And obviously, you have to pay for it, and I do, and I'm happy to have paid for it.
Yeah. Yeah, we had the CEO on the show a few months ago.
Yes, right. And I heard that, and I think he was on with Gruber before you, I think, right? Mm-hmm. And those were the things that turned me over to it. And I did the trial and I'm on, I forget what program I'm on. It's not the lowest end program. It's the second one up because I search a lot more than I think.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah. I had the same experience.
So because it's funny, the Kagi website says, "Oh, you'll probably be able to use this first layer. That'll probably be fine for you." No, no, not at all. I guess I'm using the search bar an awful lot, but I find it very nice. Again, it's like finding things on the first page. What you really wanted to find on the first page and high on the first page. I remember when you used to be able to do that. Gosh, it's wonderful.
Did you guys see they released a new product called Kagi News?
I looked at it yesterday. And so the answer is yes, I did see it. And I looked at it yesterday. It seems a little thin to me.
Yeah, that's the selling point, really. It's like 10 stories in each category: world, national, business, technology, and they update it once a day. So if you're somebody who like keeps going back to the news, not getting sucked into the vortex of the news, I kind of like it. I think it's a good idea for that problem because you check the news in the morning, and if you come back in the afternoon, that's not changing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're less inclined to spend your day hanging on the thread of whatever the latest, outrage generating news is. And
if you like doom scrolling, you will not like Kagi News.
If you like doom scrolling, you need Kagi News. I would say.
well, I don't know. I mean, doom scrollers are people too, David. They should be allowed to scroll their doom.
I don't know.
What I didn't like about it was, and this is a terribly American-centric thing, their sports coverage there was too much soccer.
Okay, there you go.
In their sports coverage.
Yeah.
And I think if they tweaked that for who you are, because, they have world news and they have US news. And frankly, if you're not living in the US, you probably don't like the fact that you have to listen to, why can't you have a news that's for your own country?
Yeah.
If you're German, why can't you have it? I think Kagi News is a step in the right direction. It's not a replacement for looking at news yet, but you can see what they're doing. And as you said, they update it at noon UTC, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you come in after that, you're good. And you don't have to come back for the next day.
Yeah, I could definitely see more customization. Like you could say, "Hey, I'm a baseball fan, particularly Chicago baseball teams, and tell me about that." Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But either way, it's a great product, Kagi, and I kind of like the ethic they're bringing to this new service, and I hope that it's successful.
Yeah, me too. I mean, as I say, my first look at it, I thought, and again, I think it was especially colored by the sports, but because I thought the national news was pretty good. Business news, I don't care about. World news, I thought was okay, but maybe I don't know enough about world news to be able to be a good judge of that. I don't know. Anyway, I think it's a step in the right direction, and I wish them luck. And I will be looking back. Other little, there's a lot of stuff that I use that everybody uses, but one thing I use, I mentioned Typinator, a free utility from Ergonis, who's the people that make Typinator, is called KeyQ, which is if you are a person who uses Keyboard Maestro or whatever you use to generate keystroke combinations, and you have a tendency, because you're getting older, to forget some of them, the ones that you don't use all the time. KeyQ is a way for you to hold down, for example, the command key, and after a period, which you get to set, a window will come up on the screen telling you, "Oh, here are the keyboard commands that you can use in this context, based on what app is running," and that sort of thing. And there's a similar thing for the control key, and I can't remember the difference between the two of them. The option key I have set up for emoji, so I can pick an emoji without Now that's a little tricky because there are so many emoji that the emoji look kind of small on the screen, but it's still decent in doing that. So that's a nice, and it's a free thing. You install it. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, throw it away. No big. You didn't lose any money.
A feature like that was, I think, first on the iPad, where you could hold down the command key and it would show you, shortcuts were available. And the Mac hasn't had a visual way like that built in. The help menu does have the search field. And if you know the menu name, it will tell you where it is, but you have to know the name, right? And something that I really like about this is it's like it will show you everything, whether or not you knew it existed or not. And I think that's a better way than Apple's current implementation that's built in.
It becomes, again, if you're someone like me who has a lot of these things, it's cluttered. When my window comes up, geez, there are a lot of keyboard shortcuts I could use at any given time. But you learn how to use it, and you learn how to sort of focus on how to find the thing if you've forgotten it. So I like it.
Well, a lot of people listening to the show will probably have a lot of keyboard shortcuts, and sometimes they hit conflicts. It looks like this would be a good way to find those conflicts as well.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, the conflicts, Keyboard Maestro is really good at finding its conflicts.
Yeah.
Within itself,
Mm-hmm.
of course. But, and so you end up, you get the little thing where you get to choose, which control command option shift 6 do you want?
Yeah.
Because you've got 3 of them.
Honestly, that sounds like my life. Drang, you also mentioned in the list here, Wolfram Mathematica, and we have danced around that topic on the show, but we've never really dug deep on it. It's not something Stephen or I would use, but as an engineer and a scientist, I believe you were using that quite a bit, right?
I'm using it. Well, I had Mathematica many, many years ago, back in the 90s. And I went away from it because I didn't want to have to pay for it. It is rather expensive if you use it professionally. But now I don't have any professional use for it. Now it's recreational math for me. And so if you're using it personally, it's still expensive, but not as expensive. And it just has so many fun things that you can do with math if math is fun for you, and it is for me. Algebra, of course, it can do. Calculus, it can do. Differential equations. It has all kinds of number theoretic things like, working out prime numbers and filtering prime numbers. And it's not unlimited, certainly, but it has so many things that it can do. And it has a pretty nice set of graphical commands, both for plotting things, which I use, and you'll see them showing up in my blog from time to time, and also for just creating 3D images. If the 3D image you want is made up of sort of primitives like cylinders and spheres and cones and things like that you start slicing in different ways. And oddly enough, I have a need for that. And so it has really nice commands for that. I would say that as a programming language, the Wolfram language is not great in that it doesn't think the way I think anyway. But it has so many wonderful capabilities. It has so many functions that can do so many things, and and there are options on all of these functions that allow you to tweak it one way or another. It's incredibly powerful, and I find it fun when I read a blog post by John Cook, who's a math blogger, and I say, oh well, let me look into that. And I get to go do what he did without knowing anything close to what he knows. But I can work things out and answer my own questions that he raises, or that his posts raise. through Mathematica. And it's a lot of fun to use. And so it's an indulgence of mine it's a subscription service. So, you buy it, and then every year or maybe every 2 years, you decide, okay, well, they've made enough changes. I'm going to pop for another year of service. Thing always works, but they are they continually add things to it. One thing, back to the LLM thing, they have an LLM, which I think is awful. I don't think it knows how to write Mathematica code, which
is kind of the purpose, right?
Because yeah, it really should know how to do that well. And in my testing, it did not. I had like a preview version of it for like a month or something, and I gave it a trial, and I wasn't too happy about it. It may have improved since then, but it was not great at that time.
Well, Dr. Drang, it's always good having you on the show and hearing what you're up to. I'm glad that you have jumped into the Apple Silicon stuff. I knew you would have. I just wanted to catch up with you on that. And as always, we're interested in all the goings-ons over at the blog. I always think of the Beatles every time I go to your website. Is that what that's from, by the way?
Oh yeah, that's John Lennon.
Yeah.
It's John Lennon quote. After the we're bigger than God.
Yeah, and now it's all
comment.
this. You can find it at leancrew, LEANCREW.com. I recommend everybody go check it out. Just subscribe. You may find out about why a bolt failed on the lawnmower, or you may find out some cool automation script. You just never know. And it's one of my delights.
It's all this.
Yeah, it's all this. It's just one of my favorite places every time you put something new. One of the things that we have all benefited from your retirement is I feel like there's more stuff coming out of you, and more interesting posts coming up over at And Now It's All This. I don't know if I'm right or not, but it just feels to me like you're posting more.
Things were down for a couple of years there, and they've started to rise up. Yeah.
It's nice.
So thank you. You're very kind.
You are one of the true delights of the internet, and I hope everybody subscribes. We are the Mac Power Users. You can find us at relay.fm/MPU. If you'd like to sign up to become a More Power Users member at relay.fm/MPU, you get the ad for extended version of the show. We're going to be talking to the good doctor about how he does his posts today. Thank you to our sponsors today, 1Password and Ecamm. We'll see you next time.